The wind hissed through the dunes, like blades tearing the air, carrying away Lena's faint cries. She lay face down on cracked, sun-baked ground, her breath stuck in her throat. Bruises mottled her arms and shoulders, burning as if fire had kissed her skin. Before sunrise, Carter had abandoned her after taking everything that remained. Her money bag, her horse, even the pair of boots she loved most. Before the story of a half-Apache horse trainer and a rancher with a frozen heart begins, tell me where you are listening from. And do not forget to hit @subscribe to watch the newest videos. 2 days had passed without a single drop of water. Her stomach was empty, her head spinning. Carter had left with a cruel laugh before disappearing into the night, leaving her stranded in the endless void of the desert. When dawn broke, the sun blazed like it wanted to set the sky on fire, yet the wind still cut with bone-deep cold. Lena forced herself up and saw, far in the distance, a faint shape, an old wooden cabin, tilting amid dust and sand, roof sagging, windows shattered. Maybe it could give her some shade, or at least a place to collapse without the vultures picking her bones. She dragged herself forward, her bare feet bleeding, every breath slicing like a knife. When she touched the door, it creaked open with a sharp, metallic shriek. Inside was only the smell of mold and rotting wood. A thick layer of dust covered the table, thick enough to write her name on. Everything was still, as if the house had died long ago. Lena slumped against the wall, clutching her stomach as hunger twisted inside her. Tears mixed with the dust on her face, and a whisper escaped her lips, soft as a dying breath. "Please, do not let me wake up again." Ho! Light filtered through the cracks in the boards, painting her pale face in gold. In that lifeless desert, Lena closed her eyes, feeling the world slowly drift away, leaving behind nothing but her fragile breath and the desperate wish to disappear forever. Sunlight spilled into the decaying cabin, revealing a tall stranger standing in the doorway, a man wrapped in a dust-grey coat, eyes deep and heavy, like someone who had watched the world crumble. His name was Elias Ward. 10 years ago, this very place had taken the woman he loved most. Today, fate had brought him back, and it began with a dying woman on the floor. Lena's eyes opened in fear as she backed away. "Do not hurt me." Elias knelt beside her, his voice low but gentle. "I did not come to hurt you." He held out a canteen. The moment the water touched her lips, life flickered back into her. But salvation never came easy. Elias spoke quietly. "If you stay here, the wolves will come before nightfall. I have nowhere else to go." He looked toward the morning light and answered softly, "Then come with me. You are not going to die here today." The door swung open. Elias lifted her onto his horse, and the second struggle for survival began, one that would test whether she had truly been saved or had just stepped into a fate even darker. They rode through the dusty road all morning, the silence broken only by the steady rhythm of hooves. Lena was half conscious, her head resting against the saddle, her breathing so faint that Elias had to slow the horse to keep her from falling. Sunlight cut through the drifting sand, painting his shoulders in gold. In his mind, the past tangled with the present, one woman dying in his arms, another fighting for life. The horse galloped through a storm of sand, leaving behind the dead cabin. Lena drifted into sleep, while Elias kept his eyes on the horizon. When they reached an old ranch in the middle of the Texas desert, the sun was just rising. A small wooden house, a slanted stable, a squeaking windmill, all stood as witnesses of time. Elias carried Lena inside, laid her on a bed, lit a fire, and made soup. The scent of pine smoke filled the room, breathing warmth back into a place that had forgotten it. When Lena awoke, she looked at him with a mix of gratitude and caution. Elias said softly, "You do not owe me anything. Once you feel better, just help me patch a coat or keep me company." Lena let out a weak laugh, the first in many days. Night fell. The firelight danced across their faces, two strangers, both scarred by the past, now finding warmth again. As Lena slept, Elias sat quietly by the fire, mending an old strap, and in that flickering light, something stirred a hope he thought had long been buried. 3 days later, Lena could stand on her own. The bruises had faded, but the shadows in her eyes remained. Elias suggested they go into Dustford, a small town blanketed in dust and coffee aroma. Everything seemed normal until a voice sharp as a knife cut through the air. "Well, look who crawled out of hell." Carter, the man who had left Lena to die, was standing right there, smirking with cruelty. "Didn't think you'd still be breathing." Lena trembled, her voice shaking with anger. "You robbed me, beat me, and left me to die." Carter shrugged. "She is lying." The air tightened like a drawn string. As Carter stepped forward, Elias appeared, gripping his wrist, his voice cold and heavy as steel. "That is enough." The crowd went silent. Carter hissed, "Old man, you have no proof." Elias stared him down. "I do not need proof. I just know you are standing too close to someone who nearly died because of you." Carter sneered, but backed away. As the sun set, shadows began to gather again beyond the fence line. That night, the wind did not blow. No crickets, no creaking windmill, only a thick, unnatural silence that made Elias uneasy. A man who had lived his whole life on this harsh land knew. Such quiet never meant peace. Lena sat by the kitchen table, mending a shirt under the soft glow of a kerosene lamp. Elias put on his coat, saying he would check the stables, but as soon as he stepped outside, he heard it faint footsteps in the dirt, the sound of leather brushing against a saddle. He stopped, blew out the lamp, and let darkness swallow the house. Under the dim moonlight, he saw two shadows moving along the fence. One of them carried a knife, steel glinting in the dark. A low, wet laugh followed one he knew too well. "Come on out, Ward. I am only here to take back what is mine." "Carter." Elias slowly stepped back toward the porch, hand gripping his old hunting rifle. He said nothing. The sand shifted beneath his boots as he moved. Another voice called out, rough and cold, "Do not make this harder, old man. Hand over the woman, and maybe you live." Inside, Lena froze. Her heart pounded as she peeked through the window. Elias stood firm on the porch, gun leveled toward the moving figures. "You planning to shoot me, Ward?" Carter sneered. "Over a lying woman?" Elias's voice cut through the night, sharp and steady. "Take one more step, and you will find out." The tension snapped. Carter lunged forward. Steel flashed then. A gunshot tore through the silence. Metal clashed, a groan followed, and a body hit the ground hard. Elias took a knife wound to his arm, blood streaking down, but he did not stop. The second man rushed him. Elias swung the rifle stock into his face, the crack echoing like breaking wood. Carter scrambled up again, raging, but Elias was ready. He caught Carter's wrist, twisted hard, the knife dropped. Within seconds, Elias had him tied up with a nearby rope, his breath ragged but eyes unshaken. "Next time you come back here," he rasped, "bring a coffin." The noise woke the neighbors. Lights flickered from afar. Someone shouted, "Get the sheriff!" Carter cursed and struggled, but it was useless. When the sheriff arrived, he saw the blood, the knife, and plenty of witnesses. Elias stood still, shirt torn, arm wrapped in cloth, face carved in stone. "You should get that arm bandaged, Ward," the sheriff said, patting his shoulder. "You did the right thing." As the crowd dispersed, Lena stepped out, the lamplight glinting in her tearful eyes. "You could have let them take me," she whispered. "You should have." Elias looked at her, his gaze softening. "That would not have suited me." A trembling smile formed on her lips. The wind began to blow again. For the first time in days, Lena was no longer afraid of the dark. But when dawn came, Elias knew. Peace never lasted long in this land, not even safety. The next morning, gentle sunlight washed over the wooden porch, softening the scars of the bloody night. The whole ranch seemed to exhale. Footprints and scuffle marks still marred the dirt, but the air was calm again. Elias sat on an old wooden chair, his right arm wrapped in white cloth, his eyes lost in the shimmering fields beyond. Lena came out carrying 2 cups of coffee. Her hands no longer trembled. She placed 1 cup in front of him and said quietly, "You should rest. Your arm still hurts." Elias took a sip, smiling wearily. "It is just a scratch. I have had worse." She smiled too, her eyes bright in the sunlight. "Maybe, but you still saved me." Again. He shook his head. "No, Lena, you saved yourself. I just opened the door for you to walk through." Those words stopped her heart for a moment. All morning, as she cleaned the yard and washed blood-stained blankets, that sentence echoed in her mind. Maybe he was right. She had not just survived. She was learning how to live again. By evening, Elias took her to the old cabin, the place where he had first found her unconscious. The door leaned, the walls cracked, the sunset spilling through broken windows. He stood quietly, his hand brushing a dusty plank. "This is where my wife died," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I could not come back here for more than 10 years. But that morning, when I saw you lying here, I knew I could not keep running." Lena looked around the empty house, the place where life and death once touched. Her voice trembled, but was steady. "I thought I was just trying to survive, but maybe what I really wanted was to see myself again." Elias turned to her, his eyes holding both sorrow and warmth. "And now you have. And this place, if you want it, is your home." Lena could not speak. Outside, the wind swept through the grasslands, carrying the warmth of a new day. Something inside her had changed. She was no longer just a survivor. She was someone beginning anew. The following weeks passed slowly, like water during a drought. The once silent ranch now echoed with laughter, hammer strikes, and the sound of wood meeting wood as they repaired fences and patched roofs. Under the Texas sun, Lena learned to work with calloused hands, while Elias learned how to let someone into the space he had long kept closed. In the mornings, she fed the horses and watered the new garden. In the afternoons, they sat on the porch drinking coffee, talking about little things, whether it might rain, the newborn calf, or sometimes saying nothing at all. It was that quiet between them that spoke the loudest. Sometimes Lena still woke in the middle of the night, heart racing. In her dreams, she was back in the desert blood and sand, Carter's laugh echoing through the dark. But when she opened her eyes, she would hear the gentle rustle of wind through the planks, the soft rhythm of horse hooves outside, and the faint smell of smoke from the hearth. Those small, ordinary sounds anchored her to the life she had chosen to stay in. Elias watched her, seeing how the woman who once trembled at every breath now smiled beneath the sunset. He realized that people can lose everything, but if they are brave enough to stay, they can still find a reason to live. One evening, as firelight flickered in the hearth, Elias said quietly, "You know, Lena, real strength is not about the gun or the fist. Sometimes it is just about standing up one more time, about daring to trust, to love, even after everything breaks." Lena said nothing. Her eyes shimmered in the glow. 2 broken souls sat side by side, needing no more words. Outside, the wind swept across the fields, the windmill turned slowly, and the sky burned red like their story itself, painful, enduring, and bright. Sometimes, at sunset, Elias would sit on the old porch, watching the horizon bathed in gold. Far away, Lena led the horses back to the stable, her steps steady and full of life. The evening light wrapped her in colour, and Elias realised, every loss, every wound, can bloom again if one is patient enough to stay. He remembered the long, lonely years, when the house echoed only with wind and rattling chains. Now, every morning came with laughter, the smell of coffee, the crackle of burning wood, and the warmth of another human presence. Maybe life never truly takes everything away. It just waits until we are ready to receive something new. Each morning, Lena awoke to sunlight spilling through the old curtains, the steady turn of the windmill, and warmth from the kitchen fire. She was no longer the woman left to die in the desert. Now she belonged to this land. The very place that had once broken her was also the one that gave her rebirth. They lived slowly, one day at a time, planting trees, fixing fences, sharing quiet stories of their past. Laughter replaced fear, and in the silence between them grew something tender, unnamed, but known. One evening, as the sky flamed red, Elias turned to her, his voice deep but warm. "You know, Lena, some stories seem to end, when in truth they are only just beginning." She smiled, her gaze drifting toward the open fields. Outside, the wind carried the scent of earth and sunlight, sweeping away the last shadows of the past. And if anyone were to pass by that wild stretch of land, they would see two people sitting side by side in a place once marked by pain, now reborn as proof of courage and love. Because even in the dry heart of the West, new dawns are still born from hearts that once thought they had gone dark. If this story touched you, do not forget to like, share, and follow more journeys await, where every sunrise brings a new story waiting to be told.